What is up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. I'm talking about how to find your art style. And when I say art style, I mean your personal voice. Sometimes art style is just people talk about the surface level stuff, but when I'm talking about art style, I mean your personal voice, the deeper parts of things. Because when people want to find their art style, that's really what people are looking for. They want to find out their creative voice. Like, where is it? What does it sound like? All these things. The method I'm going to talk about today is the detox method. I'll get into that, but the first thing I want to cover is why is finding your art style, your creative voice so challenging? And the big part of it is that you have to get rid of your expectations of what your personal voice is. Because a lot of times what will happen is people will develop an idea in their head about what their voice should be like based on external expectations or a story that they have in their head about what industry they want to work in. And this expectation gets in the way of what their natural voice actually is. And this is why it's really hard to find your art style. Sometimes people get really lucky where their personal voice just comes through and it matches their expectations because they just happen to align. But for most people, their expectations will get in their way of what their voice actually sounds like. And the biggest way people build up these expectations is social media, looking at art online. These things, looking at things that you like, can be a good way to find your art style. But in many cases, it creates this expectation in your head about what is successful, what works, what it is that other people like. And this puts pressure on you, so you don't allow your natural voice to come through because you have this continuous story about, oh, I like this artist and I want to make work that looks like this. So you keep trying to make work that looks like that, even though the medium isn't right, the subject matter isn't right, and your voice just doesn't come through. It's not what you're naturally interested in, but you feel like the need to follow that path continuously because you have this expectation in your head. And this is where the detox method comes in. So what is a detox method? You set aside a couple of weeks, a week maybe. I would recommend 2 weeks or at least a week. It depends on how much you draw, where you don't look at any art, period, and you just draw. So you spend a lot of time drawing in your sketchbook and you don't look at any art online, anywhere. Just don't fill your head with any expectations. Just stop looking at stuff and just focus on drawing and look at what comes out naturally. So in the beginning, what you're going to find is that you're going to be very rigid. And then over time, you're going to get more and more loose because your expectations are going to start lowering because you're not feeding yourself these expectations about what is good art, because you don't have as much stuff to judge yourself against. Now, if you don't draw a lot, it has to be a longer period of time for this to work. But over time, you will recognize things in the work that keep coming up, because you will see that you will keep returning to certain subject matter, and that's where your natural voice actually is. Now, it takes some time because you still have a certain amount of expectation in your head. That's why sometimes it might take you a whole month of just not looking at anything and just making your own stuff and putting no expectation on it. Just create tons and tons of drawings and paintings and whatever it is that you make. Just make tons of it so that you can get more and more in tune with your own voice without feeding yourself these expectations. I tried this method, and there are two things that I learned from doing this. I did it for a week, but I drew a lot. I drew like 5 hours a day, like tons and tons of drawing. The two things I learned: I like drawing flowers, and I like very abstract, surrealistic things. I realized that drawing full figures and drawing these very illustrative things isn't my natural voice, even though I want it to be. Part of me wants to draw realistic figures and all this stuff, but my natural voice isn't there. And I realized this through this exercise, the detox method. And it's very challenging to accept what comes, but that's a big part of this. The only way this will actually work is if you, one, draw a lot. You have to put in a lot of drawing time, right? And two, don't look at anything. Just keep your expectations low, and then you have to accept what comes. Emotionally, this is very, very hard to do. It's not easy. It was very hard for me to do. Because you're so emotionally attached to the idea, the story you have about where you're headed, and then suddenly you realize, oh no, my natural voice isn't where I thought it was. So what do? Do I hold on to the old story and not let my natural voice through, keep chasing this thing? Or do I put faith in the fact that my natural voice is where the great art will come from? And it takes a lot of faith to do this. It's not easy because you might think, I like making this stuff, but maybe no one else will like it, which is something I think about a lot with my work all the time. Like I'm working on a drawing right now where I like making it and it makes me excited. But every time I look at it, I'm like, ooh, I don't know, it doesn't have a pretty face in it. You know, it doesn't have anything that's normally popular online. So there's always this feeling of like, oh no, I'm going to fail financially as a creative. Like even if I make stuff that only I like, then you know, how am I supposed to make money off this thing? And I think everyone wants to be liked. So there's this constant pressure, and this is why the detox method focuses on getting away from all the external expectations of looking at other artists and being online on social media. Get away from that stuff, take a break from it, and just focus on your natural voice. And you have to just trust that your natural voice has value. And I think this is very hard to do. Trusting that you as a person, your natural interests are valuable is at least hard for me. I don't know, maybe let me know about you guys, but for me, assuming that I have value is challenging. It's kind of this weird thing where you feel like, oh, I have to prove myself. But a lot of times it's what's easiest to you, what comes out naturally, that is the most valuable. Think about your friends, your closest friends in terms of this, in terms of what's natural is the most valuable. Your closest friends are probably the friends that don't try too hard. They are just themselves, you know, and you like them for being them. You don't want your friend to act like someone else. You want them to act like themselves. And if you transfer that into the art world, we want you to be your natural voice, to shine through from where you naturally come from instead of trying to be someone else. And this whole thing comes back to this finding your art style through the detox method is getting away from all these expectations of being other people and just being yourself, taking the time to just draw tons and find your style that way. And it takes time. It takes a couple of weeks, like it should take 2 weeks-ish. Just try to get away from the art for 2 weeks. If you really want to find your art style quickly, this is one of the best ways to do it. And you want to draw a lot too, okay? And that's it for this video. Hope you guys like this. If you were interested in learning how to draw, I have a bunch of art tutorials over on my website, and also sign up for the mailing list. When you're there, it's the best way for us to stay in touch. And if you like this video, feel free to subscribe. Just come along. I'm making many more of these. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for checking this out. Bye.
Wow.